I've been very vocal on this channel in my support of Google's other operating system, Chrome OS. I've talked about how I think it's growing at a quite rapid rate. They're adding a ton of great features and they're really beginning to take this operating system very seriously, right alongside the advent of better and better hardware for this software to run on. And in fact, if you look at Chromebook shipments worldwide, you'll see a rapid, massive amount of growth 2020 and 2021. In a span of only 2 years, the shipments of Chromebooks worldwide more than doubled. And of course, a lot of this is honestly partially due to the pandemic. A lot of people found themselves either working from home or doing their schoolwork from home. And a great option for these sorts of tasks happen to be Chromebooks. And in fact, PC sales, tablet sales, all of these sorts of things went up a ton. Chromebooks went up a lot. In an earlier video, I talked about how that would represent sort of the perfect Trojan horse scenario for Google. Millions and millions of kids would be using Chromebooks now as their primary computing device for their schoolwork. They would get to see that Chromebooks are actually pretty good. You can now do some gaming on some newer ones as well. And as these kids grow into adults, they're more likely to then buy Chromebooks then because it's what they're already used to. So when you combine radically improved versions of Chrome OS, the software getting better and better, the hardware continuing to improve as we get more and more powerful laptops available, as well as some really nice stuff on the budget side like Chromebooks Duet and devices like that. You combine that with massive increases in sales, which people do tend to buy things like they already have, what they're already used to. I was saying, hey, the future looks quite bright for Chromebooks and Chrome OS. Eagle-eyed viewers among you, though, may have noticed this last bar, 2022. This is the projected sales total for 2022, and it's sitting at 29.4 million, and that is the lowest it's been since 2019. It's still much higher than 2019. We're going to get into that, but it is lower than 2020. So, yes, Chromebook sales are in fact slowing down. They're slowing down pretty dramatically, actually. This is a pretty big decrease. When we look at this increase from 2019 to 2020, to say that's a big increase is a massive understatement. It's an increase that you rarely see in the tech space. This is especially for an established product, a product that's been out for a long time. To nearly double year over year out of nowhere is insane. This decrease is rather significant. So what does this mean? Is this doom and gloom for Chromebooks? Where do we go from here? What's the context? We're going to get into that now. So the first thing we got to look at is this press release from Gartner. They have their projections for 2022, and they're projecting worldwide PC shipments to decline 9.5% in 2022. So first thing we have to understand is this is not a Chromebook only scenario. Let's look at their table that we have here, and let's look at these numbers and go over to the growth for 2022. PCs are set to grow negative 9.5%. Tablets are expected to be down by 9%. Phones are down by 7.1%. And Samsung, we talked about this in an earlier video. The Samsung's projections are massively reduced because people that are normally buying their budget and lower end phones are not buying them. We're going to tie that back into this as well. Total devices down 7.6%. Now, as it says here, PC segment includes notebooks, ultra mobile premiums, and Chromebooks. Tablets include all Android and iOS. It's everything together. That kind of rounds that out for you. But the fact that PC sort of encompasses everything from a normal Windows laptop to a Chromebook, we don't really know how bad this is for Chrome OS. Now, TechCrunch has a quote here, which I will highlight and we will read here in a second, and I can't find anyone else to substantiate this. I don't know where they're getting this number from. It is not on Gartner's report anywhere that I can find. They do have on this article, though, a few quotes, like they interviewed the senior director at Gartner, but this is not in quotes. So again, I don't know exactly where this information came from, but we're going to take it at face value and talk about what it would mean. Chromebooks are expected to take the biggest hit, with Gartner predicting that they will be down a whopping 30% this year compared to 3% for PCs, with Macs expected to be flat. So when you see this 9.5% down number here, you have to take into account that what they're saying is Chromebooks are going to be a lot of it, all right? 30% negative growth for Chromebooks, dragging it down. Windows PCs down 3%, which is not too awful. And then Mac kind of staying flat, staying even, because Apple is immune to pretty much any sort of economic concerns that the rest of us may have for whatever reason. All right, so it doesn't look great for Chromebooks in this upcoming year. We can go back to this initial table here that showed it down from 37 to 29 via this website, Statista, their projections. And yeah, 30% down is really not good. So the first thing we have to figure out is, why is this happening? And I think that there are a plethora of different reasons why these sales are beginning to slow. The first one is market saturation. They sold so many Chromebooks for a couple of years. It was an insane amount of Chromebooks that they were selling. And pretty much anyone that needed a Chromebook probably bought one. You also have to factor in the idea that they're not really something that you need to upgrade every year or every other year. You get updates for several years at a time with these Chromebooks, and performance stays pretty flat, right? Like a Chromebook that I bought 5 years ago today runs as well as it did 5 years ago. It's added features, it's added new stuff. All of it still runs fine. Chrome OS is so lightweight. Once you buy one, you're not going to have to go back and get one all that soon. So we're saturated. So the market's already probably going to slow because of that. But then we have to think about the fact that the same thing that's been hurting Samsung is probably hurting Google with Chromebooks here. As I mentioned earlier, Samsung has had to pretty dramatically, I think it was by like 30 million units, reduce their projections for 2022. And it's not their premium phones that aren't selling, it's their budget phones. It's the A series. I think they said they had like 50 million of them or something. I may be totally wrong about this, but it was a huge number of phones sitting unsold, and it was more than they normally like to have. It was like an 8% increase of unsold phones sort of just in the supply chain area, still unsold. So Samsung is not selling their cheaper phones. Well, what is the budget phone in the computer space? It's the Chromebook. And what we're seeing here is, as we are in this economic downturn, which we are clearly in after the pandemic and all the craziness going on, the people that buy Chromebooks, the people that buy Samsung's A series phones, are people that don't have a ton of money. Now, I'm not saying if you buy a Chromebook, you're poor. That's not what I'm saying. But you know what I mean. They're the cheaper device, right? So those people are the people that tend to get hit first by economic trouble. These are the people that don't have a big savings account, that don't have the excess money, so that when they lose a bit, it really hurts them. And when they lose that bit of money that they're losing right now, guess what they're not going to go do? They're not going to go make frivolous purchases like upgrading their phone or buying a new Chromebook. The target audience of Chromebooks are being hardest hit. Why is it that Apple is flat in this regard? Because they only sell premium products. The people that buy these Apple products, that buy these premium products, are not as affected by the economy right now. This is pretty simple economics. And of course, Windows being down 3%, that's because they're somewhat insulated as well. They run the gamut from cheap to premium, and that kind of helps balance things out. They're more diversified, right? Why does Google keep encouraging vendors to build premium Chromebooks? Well, this is the reason. You don't want to only sell cheap stuff, because when the economy takes a hit, you lose all of your sales, which is what's currently happening to Chrome OS here. In addition to market saturation, kids are going back physically into school, so they don't need as many Chromebooks. People are going back to the office, so the Chromebooks are making less and less sense there as well. It's kind of a perfect storm of bad things happening for Chrome OS. But on the flip side of things, it's not as bad as it may seem. We have to project into the future though, right? If it continues year over year to decrease, and this was sort of a flash in the pan, and Google is unable to use that Trojan horse to maintain some market share to get people to come back to Chrome OS, then yeah, absolutely, this could be the beginning. If we look 10 years down the line, we could then look back and go, oh yeah, this was the beginning of the downturn. But I don't think it's necessarily the case, because if you do look at these numbers, if you had have told me, you know, we didn't know about the pandemic, right? It's 2019, we don't know that the world's about to end, and you see that Chromebook shipments in 2019 were 17 million, and then you had said 2022 is going to be 29 million. I would have said, wow, that seems like they were growing every year, and they're doing pretty good. That seems like things are going pretty well. Now, we had this aberration. We had 2020 and 2021. We had the pandemic and everyone's schooling from home and working from home, and it exploded. Google would have been happy with this 2022 number if not for already having the 2020 and 2021 numbers. So it's all about where we go from here, right? They can have a little bit of a downturn as long as they can kind of flatten out and then continue to grow after that. It can be okay. I'll give you a perfect example of this, an analogy, a parallel example on my YouTube channel. Right when I first started doing this more and more often, when I was trying to make this YouTube channel my life thing, my job, when the original Surface Duo came out and I covered it, my numbers spiked through the roof. Like thousands of % increase in views. Well, then as that kind of went on, my views tapered down, but they remained much higher than they were before. So spike, taper, still higher though, and it continued, and it has slowly grown ever since, with some spikes that have been similar. Spike and then a taper, but still higher. If Google can do the same thing here, I think that they're going to be just fine. So this is not cause just yet for doom and gloom. We should not be sounding the alarms, ringing the bells, Chrome OS, Chromebooks are dead. It's not the case at all. They are still in a better place now than they were just a few short years ago. So there you go, guys. If you've been seeing these doom and gloom headlines about Chromebooks, about how they're going to be dead in the water going forward, there's some information for you. Maybe pump the brakes. Let's have a little bit of levity, right? Let's use our heads here instead. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.